Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember, Context is Everything Media Network, founder and CEO, John Michael, coming to you with another episode of the Ambient Classroom. The Ambient Classroom is a program wherein I read a world history textbook, cover to cover. Here we sit on page 316. And yes, I've read every single page out loud here on this channel. This is to set my context. This is to establish an ethic of the channel. And yesterday, I let ChatGPT write my notes for the first time on chapter 13.3. Meaning I scanned all of the text, pasted it into ChatGPT and said, write this in less than 5,000 characters, and I copied and pasted it. Let's see how it reads. Chapter 13.3 is yesterday's reading, and I'm going to do a review that ChatGPT wrote. Korea is a peninsula located in East Asia, bordered by China to the north and separated from Japan by the sea. The majority of the peninsula is covered by mountains, with the Taebaek mountain range running along the eastern coast, and the western coastal plains being major farming regions. The country has a long coastline with many harbors and thousands of offshore islands. The seafood has traditionally been an important part of Korean diet. Throughout history, Korea has been heavily influenced by China, both culturally and technologically. But the Korean language is not related to Chinese. In early times, Koreans adapted to and transformed Chinese traditions before passing them to Japan. 3 separate kingdoms, Koguryo, Paikche, and Shilla, existed between 300 AD and 600 AD. And after centuries of conflicts, the Shilla kingdom united the Korean peninsula in 668 AD, with the support of the Tang Emperor Wu Zhao, Tang China. The Shilla ruled from 668 to 918, followed by the Koryo dynasty from 918 to 1392, and the Choson, or Yi dynasty, from 1392 to, you guessed it, 1910. What a run. It's much longer than the United States has been a union. During the Shilla dynasty, Korea became a tributary state of China, adopting Confucian ideas such as the emphasis on family as the foundation of the state. Women's rights became restricted under the influence of Confucian views. The Koreans adapted the modified Chinese ideas to reflect their own system of inherited ranks. Buddhism reached its greatest influence in Korea during the Goryeo age, and the Korean scholars writing histories and poems based on Chinese models, and artists creating landscape paintings following Chinese principles. Korean inventors made movable metal type and improved on Chinese inventions. The Choson dynasty was the longest in Korean history, lasting from 1392 to 1910, much longer than the United States has been a union, and produced some of Korea's leading poets and scholars. Okay, I'm going to say, with a little bit of tweaking, that would be some darn fine notes. Like, some paragraphs and maybe some headings. Otherwise, that's a great set of notes right there. I'm going to continue to do that and save myself about 20 minutes a day. Letting ChatGPT write the notes, scanning and pasting. Save me 20 minutes. Get me back doing thumbnails, which I haven't done in about 2 weeks. Okay. Chapter 13, Section 4 is today's reading, which I'm going to read cover to cover right now. Chapter 13, Section 4. The Emergence of Japan. That would be where a sort of title screen were to appear. I picture like breaking news. The Emergence of Japan. Setting the scene. Prince Shotoku of Japan's ruling Yamato clan wanted to create an orderly society. In 604, he outlined ideas of behavior for both the royal court and ordinary people. Harmony should be valued, he wrote, and quarrels avoided. Shotoku's words reflected a strong Confucian influence about social order. As he stated, "Everyone has his biases, and few men are far-sighted. Therefore some disobey their lords and fathers and keep up feuds with their neighbors. But when superiors are in harmony with each other and inferiors are friendly, then affairs are discussed quietly and the right view of matters prevails." That's about the most logical statement I've read in a while. Like Korea, Japan, that was Prince Shotoku. Like Korea, Japan felt the powerful influence of China's civilization early in its history. At the same time, the Japanese continued to maintain their own distinct culture. Geography. Japan, a land apart. That's a heading. Japan is located in an archipelago, or chain of islands, about 100 miles off the Asian mainland and east of Korea. For its four main islands, Hokkaido, Honshu, Kyushu, and Shikoku. Let me read that again. Its four main islands, Hokkaido, Honshu, Kyushu, and Shikoku. Japan is about the size of Montana, but 4/5 of its land is too mountainous to farm. As a result, most people settle in narrow river valleys and along the coastal plains. A mild climate and sufficient rainfall, however, helped Japanese farmers make the most of limited farmable land. As in ancient Greece, the mountainous terrain at first was an obstacle to unity. The surrounding seas have both protected and isolated Japan. It was close enough to the mainland to learn from Korea and China, but too far away for the Chinese to conquer. Japan thus had greater freedom to accept or reject Chinese influences than did other East Asian lands. At times, the Japanese sealed themselves off from foreign influence, choosing to go their own way. The seas that helped Japan preserve its identity also served as trade routes. The inland sea was an especially important link among various Japanese islands. The seas also offered plentiful food resources. The Japanese, like the Koreans, developed a thriving fishing industry. Ring of Fire. Japan lies in the Pacific region known as the Ring of Fire, which also includes the Philippines, Indonesia, and parts of Australia and South America. This region is subject to frequent earthquakes, volcanoes. Underwater earthquakes can launch killer tidal waves called tsunamis that sweep over the land without warning, wiping out everything in their path. How scary. The Japanese came to fear and respect the dramatic forces of nature. Today, as in the past, soaring Mount Fuji with its snow-capped volcanic crater is the sacred symbol of the beauty and majesty of nature. The beauty and majesty and power of nature, of course, being defined as the word sublime. A little vocabulary for you. Beauty, power of nature. Mysterious beauty and power of nature. The sublime. You're welcome. Early traditions. New heading. The people we know today as Japanese probably migrated from the Asian mainland more than 2,000 years ago. They slowly pushed their earlier inhabitants, the Ainu, onto the northernmost island of Hokkaido. Yamato clan, new subheading under early traditions. Yamato clan. Early Japanese society was divided into uji or clans. Each uji had its own chief and a special god or goddess who is seen as the clan's original ancestor. Some clan leaders were women, suggesting that women enjoyed a respected position in society. By about 500 AD, the Yamato clan came to dominate a corner of the Honshu, the largest Japanese island. For the next 1,000 years, the Yamato Plain was the heartland of Japanese government. The Yamato set up Japan's first and only dynasty. They claimed direct descent from the sun goddess Amaterasu, and chose the rising sun as their symbol. Later, Japanese emperors were revered as living gods. While this is no longer the case, the current Japanese emperor still traces his roots to the Yamato clan. Subheading. Shinto. Early Japanese clans honored kami, or nature spirits. The worship of the forces of nature became known as Shinto, meaning the way of the gods. Shinto never evolved into international religion like Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam. Still, its traditions have survived to the present day. Hundreds of Shinto shrines dot the Japanese countryside. Though simple in design, they are generally located in beautiful natural surroundings. Shinto shrines are dedicated to special sites or objects such as mountains or waterfalls, ancient gnarled trees, or even oddly shaped rocks. That's pretty interesting. So they'd build the shrine where a natural structure that is revered is. I like that. The Korean Bridge. The Korean Bridge. The Japanese language is distantly related to Korean, but completely different from Chinese. From early on, Japan and Korea were in contentious contacts with each other. Korean artisans and metalworkers settled in Japan, bringing sophisticated skills and technology to Japanese and Korean warriors crossed the sea in both directions to attack each other's strongholds. Some of the leading families in the Yamato court claimed Korean ancestors. By about 500 AD, missionaries from Korea had introduced Buddhism to Japan. With it came the knowledge of Chinese writing and culture. This opening sparked a sudden surge of Japanese interest in Chinese civilization. New heading. Japan looks to China. In the early 600s, Prince Shotoku of the Yamato clan decided to learn about China directly instead of through Korean sources. He sent young nobles to study in China. Over the next 200 years, many Japanese students, monks, traders, and officials visited the Tang court. The Tang court. Imported from China, subheading under Japan looks to China. Each mission spent a year or more in China, negotiating, trading, but above all, studying. They returned to Japan eager to spread Chinese thought, technology, and arts. They also imported Chinese ideas about government. Japanese rulers adopted a title, Heavenly Emperor, and claimed absolute power. They strengthened the central government, set up a bureaucracy, and adopted a new law code similar to that of China. Still, the new bureaucracy had little real authority beyond the royal court. Out in the countryside, the old clans remained strong. In 710, the Japanese emperor built a new capital at Nara, modeled on the Tang capital at Changzhen in China. There, Japanese nobles spoke Chinese and dressed in Chinese fashion. Their cooks prepared Chinese dishes and served food on Chinese-style pottery. Tea drinking, along with elaborate tea ceremony, was imported from China. Japanese officials and scholars used Chinese characters to write official histories. Tang music and dance became very popular, as did gardens designed along Chinese lines. As Buddhism spread, the Japanese adopted pagoda architecture. Buddhist monasteries grew rich and powerful. Confucian ideas and ethics also took root. They included the emphasis on filial piety, which I think is honoring your elders and family, the relationship between superior and inferior, and respect for learning. Never mind. Filial piety is the relationship between superior and inferior, and respect for learning. Selective borrowing is the next subheading under Japan looks to China. Selective borrowing? In time, the initial enthusiasm for everything Chinese died down. The Japanese kept some Chinese ways but discarded others and modified others. This process, known as selective borrowing. Japan, for example, never accepted the Chinese civil service examination to choose officials based on merit. Instead, they maintained their tradition of inherited status through family position. Officials were educated sons of nobles. By the 800s, as Tang China began to decline, the Japanese court turned away from its model. After absorbing all they could from China, the Japanese spent the next 400 years designing and modifying these cultural acquisitions to produce their own unique civilization. The Japanese asserted their identity by revising the Chinese system of writing and adding kana, or phonetic symbols representing syllables. Japanese artists developed their own style. New heading: the Heian period. Heian. The Heian period. This blending of cultures took place from 794 to 1185. During this time, the imperial capital was Heian, present-day Kyoto. There, emperors performed traditional religious ceremonies, while wealthy court families like the Fujiwara wielded real power. The Fujiwara married their daughters to the heirs of the throne, thus ensuring their authority. An elegant court. Like the Heian court, an elegant and sophisticated culture blossomed. Noble women and noble men lived in fairy tale atmosphere of beautiful pavilions, gardens, and lotus pools. Elaborate rules of etiquette governed court ceremony. Courtiers dressed with extraordinary care in delicate multicolored silk. Draping one's sleeves out of a carriage window was a fine art. Draping one's sleeves. Okay. Although men at court still studied Chinese, women were forbidden to learn the language. Despite these restrictions, it was Heian women who, using a new kana, it was Heian women who produced the most important works of Japanese literature of the period. Using new kana, which is language, I believe, right? Yeah, phonetic symbols representing syllables. Using new kana, women of the court produced fine diaries, essays, and collections of poetry. In the 900s, Sei Shonagon, a lady in writing to the empress, wrote the Pillow Book. In a witty series of anecdotes and personal observations, she provided vivid details of court manners, amusements, decor, and dress. In one selection, Shonagon discusses the importance of keeping up a good appearance at court. Nothing can be worse than allowing the driver of one's ox carriage to be poorly dressed. It does not matter too much if the other attendants are shabby, since they remain in the rear of the carriage. But the driver, they are bound to be noticed, and if they are badly turned out, it makes a painful impression. Sei Shonagon, the Pillow Book. Lady Murasaki. The best-known Heian writer was Sei Shangon, his rival. The best-known Heian writer was Sei Shangon's rival, Murasaki Shikibu. Her monumental work, The Tale of Genji, was the world's first full-length novel. The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu. The Tale of Genji recounts the adventures and loves of a fictional Prince Genji and his son. In one scene, Genji moves with ease through a festival with an elaborate Chinese bouquet. After dinner, under the great cherry tree of the southern court, the entertainment begins. There is music. Genji performs skillfully on his 13-stringed zither and does the wave dance. But the main event of the evening is a Chinese poetry contest. Genji and other guests have given a rhyme word, which they must use to compose a poem in Chinese. Genji's word is spring, and his poem is a hit of the banquet. Elegant though they are, the Heian poems and romances are haunted by a sense of sadness. The writers lament that love does not last, and the beauty of the world is gone soon. Perhaps this feeling of melancholy was prophetic. While noble men and women strolled through the manicured gardens outside the walls of the court, clouds of rebellion and civil war were gathering. And that is what we call the entire section about Japan and the emergence of Japan. Tomorrow, we will be talking about Japan's feudal age, and I will assume that will be the end of the chapter. We are on page 319 of 1007. I hope you have a wonderful day, and bye-bye.